Finance Minister Jim Flaherty hands down his new fiscal blueprint. The extended swing bridge closure leads to some threatening rhetoric. And another Thunder Bay athlete prepares for the Sochi Games.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Federal Finance Minister Jim Flaherty tabled his 10th budget today.
Flaherty's new fiscal plan includes targeted spending measures for consumers and a hint that Canada may already be in the black. Julie Van Dusen has the details.
Some people will say this budget is boring.
Jim Flaherty considers that a compliment because Canada could actually have a small surplus right now, about $100 million. But that surplus is so small, Flaherty isn't ready to declare the budget balanced yet.
We're not quite there yet, but we're almost there.
Next year, when the country is expected to be officially in surplus, it will be nearly twice as much as predicted, $6.4 billion.
And this is the right budget for our country, even though it doesn't have flashy spending in it for this.
Some of the spending measures include $1.5 billion over 10 years for research split among Canadian universities, $500 million in support of the auto sector, and $390 million over 5 years for projects like roads and bridges in national parks. The government also outlined its focus on consumers, including allocating $300 million to upgrade internet speed in rural areas and creating legislation to crack down on the price discrepancies on the same items between the U.S. and Canada. Some big-ticket items are being deferred, like military equipment, and that money is being used to fight the deficit, says this analyst.
The inability to procure over the years and the delays appear to result now in a windfall to the fiscal balance.
The government is also going after health benefits and pensions for retired public servants by making them pay higher premiums. Small businesses are happy.
When you retire as a private sector Canadian, you don't have access to these gold-plated benefits, gold-plated pensions that civil servants do.
The opposition parties were quick to react.
In particular, Canada has a total of 260,000 young people looking for a job. They would have liked to have seen something like a hiring tax credit in this budget, something we've been talking about for a long time. There's really not much in there.
This government has run out of ideas and is demonstrating it once again.
While some measures don't kick in for years, one in particular kicks in right now, a tax on cigarettes. Smokers will have to pay an extra $4 for a carton of cigarettes, giving the government an extra $660 million a year. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce is also weighing in on budget details. President Charlotte Robinson says she believes there are a couple of things in the budget that are important for Thunder Bay, specifically skills training and expanding Canada's job grant. She says it's something they've talked about for a long time because there are different needs for each province.
The feds have come and said, if the local province that you're in doesn't jump in, we'll cover the difference. So that's positive because it will still allow the federal funding piece to go forward, but also not negatively impact perhaps provincial programs that don't fit into the federal tick boxes. So I think that that's a really good compromise, and of course they're going to be announcing more details in the next coming months, and so we'll see a little more about that.
Other areas that Robinson says she's looking forward to hearing more about revolve around the Building Canada Fund and the remote broadband program.
Tackling a major deficit in city-run daycare centers was a hot topic at Thunder Bay City Hall last night. Taxpayers will need to kick in an extra $775,000 this year to maintain the level of service at the 4 municipally run facilities. And that number will only continue to grow next year. Dennis Ward has more on how the city plans to address the deficit.
Look at the cost.
Councillor Rebecca Johnson has been making her thoughts on city-run childcare centres known in recent weeks. Facing massive cost overruns and declining enrollment, she says it's time to get out of the game altogether.
The school system is picking this up more and more. We have 32 organizations that could take on our students, but we have to transition us. I don't believe that tomorrow we should close them all and put everybody out on the street. That's not a good plan. So we have to have a transition from our system to another system.
Paul Pugh says some form of change is inevitable, but he's worried about the childcare options for children not going into the school system.
I am very concerned that the children of Thunder Bay not be left to unlicensed childcare providers in order to make the budget look good.
Councillor Linda Ridholm defended daycares run privately in people's homes. She says nobody should suggest those places are giving poorer care.
I don't think we should leap to any conclusion that the care for those children is somehow inferior.
City staff say only 6% of daycares in Ontario are municipally run, but Mayor Keith Hobbs is concerned about the families using the city-run facilities right now.
I want to make sure these 278 children and 193 families are looked after, and that they have somewhere to take their children. I know it's an economic thing, and we shouldn't be in the business. I agree with that, but I don't think it's the time to get out of it now.
Council voted for staff to bring back a report on options to reduce the cost of the service. Still, Rebecca Johnson says she will try to cut the daycare system out of the budget during Tuesday's deliberations. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
The suggestion of the city getting out of the daycare business is drawing reaction from other operators in Thunder Bay. The move might seem like good news for privately run daycares, but at least one owner is saying it's not a good idea. Shubha Pandit is the owner of Busy Buddies Child Care Center on Glengarry Drive. She says it would not be a good move for city-run daycares to close because the kids will have simply nowhere to go. She says her daycare, along with many others, are already at full capacity.
Over here at Busy Buddies, we won't because we are only licensed for 13 children. We can't go any higher than that. And as well as the other childcare centers in the city, I'm pretty sure they're probably at capacity right now with their waiting lists.
Pandit adds that opening up more private daycare centers in the city is a hard task. For 8 years, she's been looking to expand, but says it's been next to impossible to find a building that can accommodate a child care center.
There were calls for a plebiscite at City Hall last night regarding the proposed new event center. With an election slated for October, talk of adding a ballot question has been heating up, but city administration and some on council feel a referendum is premature. Concerned taxpayer Henry Wojak believes the city should have a plebiscite on both the location and the need for a 6,000-seat event center. City Manager Tim Camiso says we're still in the feasibility stage and many questions remain unanswered. He believes any asking of a question at the ballot box right now would be speculative in nature. City Clerk John Hannam says council would need to decide whether to hold a plebiscite by April 28th.
In the absence of a clear question to put forward, it'd be premature at this time to move towards that deadline.
Mayor Keith Hobbs says the city continues to do its homework on the project. Without knowing all of the answers, he feels the 2014 election isn't the time to have a plebiscite on the event center.
I think a plebiscite is premature right now too. I said when I was running for mayor that if we have to debenture funds, then maybe that's time to ask some questions, and we're not there yet.
Adding a plebiscite to the 2014 election ballot is estimated to cost between $100,000 and $200,000. Last night, council did give the authority to sign funding agreements for phase 3 of the project. They're anticipating more than $1 million from senior levels of government to be announced soon.
The former chief of the Fort William First Nation wants to see a blockade to stop CN trains going over the swing bridge. That was one of the suggestions at a public meeting last night about the swing bridge closure. The forum drew a large crowd voicing concerns following the fire that damaged the bridge in late October. Courtney Rutherford reports.
I think we'd have to almost pretty well close up.
Jessie Bannon is the owner of J&W Confectionery and Bannon's Gas Bar located on Fort William First Nation. Her business has been running for over 40 years, and since the James Street Swing Bridge set fire back in late October, her business has dropped by 50%. She attributes the decline solely on the fact that people just aren't taking the highway to get to her store.
Because that road, there's no lights on it or nothing, so they don't come out. And we're open till 10 o'clock at night, and they come in the morning, but other than that, there's not too many people coming.
Bannon, along with a couple hundred other people, came together at the Fort William First Nation Community Centre to share their frustrations and have their voices heard. A poll was conducted recently to determine how the swing bridge closure had impacted their businesses in the area. Numbers have shown that City Road businesses have lost $50,000 per day in sales, totaling $5.2 million since October 29th. All businesses along the road are down by 40% on average, and employment wages have been reduced by up to 40% as well.
I mean, they depend a lot on the traffic coming through. And I mean, when you go from, say, 15,000 cars a day down to, say, 7,000 to 8,000, I mean, that's a significant drop. And as a result, it impacts the local businesses. But again, even from some of the social agencies around here, they're noticing a drop in clients as well.
Many people came to show their support, including Thunder Bay Mayor Keith Hobbs and former Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins. He says he's had it and wants to call for a blockade.
But I think blocking those trains from crossing that bridge until we get an answer. If it's not safe for our travel, our transportation to travel across there, how could it be safe for trains to travel across there? And if there's a disaster with those trains falling in the river, who's first impacted? That's our community.
According to Fort William First Nation Chief Georgianne Morrisseau, dialogue between her and CN has been very limited. She says they haven't spoken much since early December and they won't be hearing any kind of response until March. As for Bannon, she hopes that things move quickly and they get some answers soon.
We get some results that they are going to fix it, they are going to open it, or are they going to build a new bridge or something and we can look forward to.
Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
Officials from CN Rail responded to the threat of a blockade today and also offered up an update on their efforts to get the swing bridge reopened to vehicles. CN spokesperson Lindsay Fetishin says their consultants are continuing to assess the bridge and the recommendations should be made available for their engineers within the next month or so. CN's Aboriginal Affairs Group has also been in correspondence with Fort William Chief Georgianne Morrisseau. Fetishin says although they do understand the community's frustration, safety is their #1 priority. And they're hoping the First Nation does not resort to a blockade.
No one wants a blockade, but we do value our relationship with the chief. And I know my colleagues on the team who have been speaking with her are doing their best to keep her updated. And I expect them to probably follow up with her. It's the day after the meeting, and there's going to be ongoing communication.
Fetishin says more information will be available next month.
Buyers from all over the world were snapping up deals from the former Global Sticks operation today. The business in Oliver Papoonge went into bankruptcy in 2012, and now everything from tools to large pieces of machinery went up for auction. Phil Darlington has more.
The short-lived operation known as Global Sticks manufactured food-grade popsicle sticks and pogo sticks before the business went under in 2012. The closure left numerous creditors with millions of dollars in unpaid loans and bills. So, in order to recoup some of the losses, the equipment and machinery is being auctioned off.
We checked out, what their viability in this market was, and we were doubtful about whether this was going to be able to work anyway.
The business was around for a few years. It wasn't very successful, and there was a receiver that brought in Grant Thornton, the receiver, and we were appointed as a liquidator to sell everything, and we're selling everything, and it's one company's misfortune is other company's fortune today.
In total, there were around 500 lots for sale, and they're being sold at a rate of about 100 an hour. While it is impossible to determine the total value of the items for auction, Haynes says he would be surprised if they get $1 million today.
When I started the auction today, I was selling stuff $5, $25, and I think my biggest piece I sold so far was probably $15,000, which isn't that high. But by the end of the day, we should have lots selling for $50,000 a lot, $75,000 a lot, some of the larger production machinery and equipment.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I guess that most of it would end up, they're looking for scrap.
The money earned through the auction will be used to pay back some of the debt that Global Sticks left behind. But the auction will not earn enough to cover all of it.
It's not going to be in the millions of dollars, no, which the debt, which is public knowledge on this file, I think was around $15 million. So there's a huge debt. There's secured creditors, a lot of unsecured creditors, and it's unfortunate that all the money won't be recovered.
Among the prospective buyers were some popsicle stick factory owners from the U.S. looking to get equipment for their businesses. They say right now it's a sad time for the industry. Phil Darlington, TBT News.
Any move to allow beer sales in Ontario corner stores would ultimately hurt consumers. That's according to a new report released by The Beer Store. Company president Ted Morose warns that convenience store sales will drive prices up by as much as $10 a case. But despite growing pressure to introduce beer into corner stores, Ontario's premier says it's not on the government's agenda.
What we've found in other provinces that have deregulated alcohol sales, prices have gone up, government revenues have gone down, and unfortunately access for underagers has gone up.
I've not seen the report on beer in convenience